This is Arts Alive. I'm Lynda Phillippi. My guest is Bob Zahniser, and he's a poet who lives in Yamhill, Oregon, and he's here to talk about his work and read some poetry to us. So, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for being here today.
It's nice to be here.
Yeah, somebody referred you and said, oh, you need to get Bob. He's great.
With Steve Long.
Yeah, that's right. Said, oh, he's a poet and you'll love him. And really, already, I love you already because of the cute email you sent me about my computer. So I'm really glad that you could be here today. And I'm really looking forward to hearing about you and your work.
Steve Long and I are in a weekly writers group.
Okay.
That's run by Mary Rash here in McMinnville. Mm-hmm. So I've known him quite well.
Mary Rash is still doing that writers group?
Yes.
She's been doing that for like 25 years, hasn't she?
It's been a long time, yeah.
I know. Wow.
And it's a really good group. So my work has improved a lot by being in there.
Wonderful. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so you come to poetry from a background as an English major.
Yes, I had a BA in English and took a number of creative writing classes. And I've pretty much been writing primarily poetry and short stories throughout my life. Mm-hmm. So, but more for the enjoyment of it than for any remuneration.
Okay.
Although remuneration would be welcome.
Yeah, anytime, throw money. We can start throwing money at you right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, do you find yourself, that you gravitate toward any particular topics?
Well, a lot of my poetry is politically driven. Mm-hmm. That's not always the case, but during things like the run-up to the Iraq War and then mm-hmm. Afghanistan, and those pushed me more towards political writing than I had been previously. It's always been an element of some of my poetry, mm-hmm. but in very political times I found that I became more political and felt that I needed to speak out. So as such, I got published in the Portland Alliance a number of times when, mm-hmm. when they were publishing. And I had trouble today deciding which poem I would start off with. Okay. And when I heard about that we're now thinking about going to war with Syria.
I just was thinking that when you were talking.
It just reminded me of a poem that I had in the Portland Alliance. And
yeah, when you started talking about that, all of a sudden I thought, okay, now here we are with Syria. What's he going to write? What's coming now?
Well, this is one that I wrote. This was from February 2008, and it's called Deja Vu. We are planning to turn live foreigners into dead ones again. We are salting the news with irrefutable fantasies that will make it necessary to turn children into ash. The good cop will say it is regrettable. The bad cop will say it is essential. They will argue, then settle on a compromise. Regrettably, it is essential. We must go to war. We must drop the bunker busters of democracy. We are preparing to turn people into pieces of people again.
Wow, that's really good.
Thank you.
I guess that's the thing about poetry is when all the rhetoric is said and done, here's the bottom line. That's what poetry is.
Yeah.
You just kind of cut through all of it. That's interesting. Okay, so.
It just seems we keep doing the same thing over and over again, too.
Exactly.
There's all these run-ups. So, and I had another one.
Sure.
And this one I started off in the Portland Alliance doing as 4,000 and counting. And then it was up to 5,000 and counting, and now I'm not sure what it's up to. This was about let me read it. 5,000 and counting. Line up the 1,000 bodies, put the pieces in the right places, reattach their names, wrap them once again in flags, send them home, prepare the ground for the next 1,000. So.
Yeah. What kind of response do you get? I mean, when you read that, do people come up and shake your hand after, or just cry? What happens?
I've usually got responses to poems like that where people appreciate the honesty of it and that it's
mm-hmm.
stated like that. I've been fortunate that I haven't got a lot of flack from people that were pro-war about them.
Okay.
So,
well, I guess I would say this, that, I mean, it's not specifically, I mean, you know, anti-war. It is, but I mean, really, it's just more of a statement of fact.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's how it strikes me is really when we're through talking about it, this is the end result. What actually happens. So.
Yeah, that is. And I've got another one.
Okay.
This was in Paper Gardens in 2009.
I recognize that chapbook because it's so beautiful. Marilyn did it. I can tell.
Oh, she did such wonderful
Yeah,
work on these
absolutely
books.
beautiful.
They're just, yeah, they are gorgeous.
You know, they're doing another artist directory.
Oh, really?
She's putting together another. She and James Nelson are putting together another artist directory, I think. Yeah.
Well, her work is just, it's absolutely
yeah.
wonderful. I've got some here, one of hers that, this one, I mean, you look at it, it's a work of art.
It is truly.
It's, and I was very pleased to be in there.
Oh, yeah.
If only to have this.
Exactly. What an honor.
So,
That's such a beautiful book. Okay.
and this is kind of on the same theme. This is a haiku. 2 soldiers knocking. Mother answers, listen, cries. Out of lies, this truth.
Wow. And all of those poems are short. I mean, none of them are long. You know, they're not long poems. They're all really short, sort of
Hopefully concise.
concise little gems, really, truly. I mean, you have a gift for that.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, sometimes when you think of poetry, especially poetry about soldiers or war, it goes on and on, you know, like yeah, some Greek tragedy, but no, okay, I like that.
Oh, you know, I have a poem about that, but I'm not sure where well, I've got a poem about poets running on a bit.
Oh, okay.
So, but here, let me read
I mean,
something
you're not what do you say, frilling it up with daffodils and anything like that. No clouds, no scudding clouds, and you know.
Yeah, I don't think I've got any clouds like that in there.
Okay.
Although I may have mentioned one. This is one that's a little bit lighter and not political.
Okay.
So, breakout at the Primate Research Center.
Okay.
The monkeys have escaped from the Primate Center. Do not be alarmed. They are ordinary monkeys. They have not been exposed to any pathogens or viruses that can be transmitted to man. But they might bite, so call us if you see them. Do not get close. Do not let them take your car keys. Do not listen to anything they say.
I like that. That's good.
So that was based on when they had some escaped monkeys a few years back. I wrote that. Oh, and this is the one about at the poetry reading.
Okay.
Which is kind of about poets running on a bit. Is the poet overcome with emotion after reading the last line? Is it a dramatic pause, a stroke, and at any moment now the poet will collapse as surely as his last metaphor? Or have we finally, after ages, reached the end of this Victorian novel of a poem? Clap now, and even if it is premature, perhaps the poet will be encouraged to quit while he is ahead.
Yeah, that you got it. You got it in a nutshell. That's so funny. Yeah, especially sometimes the poetry. The best ones are not even a real poetry reading, but like a poetry reading that's on TV as part of something else. You know, and the dramatic. Oh, I love it. That's great. So when you do poetry readings, I'm assuming that yours are fairly straightforward.
Yes.
Okay, you just kind of keep it businesslike.
Yeah.
No big
more or less.
heaving bosoms or anything like that.
Well, I try to use my voice to get the proper intonations and cadence. So, but that's about it. Yeah, it's not big drama. So.
You know, and that's an interesting thing because you always, I wonder this, a poet, as he's writing, or she, but in your case a he, you're writing this poem. Now, do you stop and do you sort of like sound it out to the empty room in a dramatic fashion, or do you just kind of read it to yourself quietly?
When I'm writing it to get the cadence, there's not that separation because when I write it, I'm trying to say it, and I guess when I think of it, I'm reading it I'm writing it as if I was saying it.
Okay.
So, and I find that there's a big difference between poems that are good when someone reads them to you and poems that are good when you're actually reading them yourself.
Right.
For example, if a poem has a lot of subtlety in it and a lot of, eddies and nooks and crannies and reverberations to other parts of it, that doesn't translate well to being read to, because when you're being read to, all you have is those words, and you can't process them in the same way that with the
Right.
same amount of time. So there's a big difference to me between a poem that is good to read and a poem that is good to read to someone.
So when you're writing, are you specifically writing one or the other on any given poem?
In most of them, I'm trying to have a clear and direct voice, so they're more for being read, actually.
Okay, so being read by me.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
no, being read by me out
Oh,
loud.
out loud. Okay, so
So-
all right, so
Although I find a lot of people appreciate that when they are reading them, because there's usually a clarity to them that where they're understandable. Whereas some poems they're very good, but they're very dense, and you've got to sit there mulling over them and thinking about them. Yes.
wade through them almost and break them down and
Yeah.
kind of parse them out a bit, and yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, there are many great poets that write like that. So, but they're not that good to have the poem read to you like that. So, unless you're already familiar with it and know what they're trying to get across.
So when you go to the Mary Rash writing group with Steve Long and the other people, do you take your poetry?
Yes.
Okay.
One of the things we do in the group is everyone reads whatever they're bringing, whether it's a short story, a chapter of a novel, poem, whatever. And so, yeah, it's a chance to get it out and see what the responses are when you are reading it.
Well, I guess I just wonder about this, like if you're trying to sort of, workshop it, if that's the right word that you use with poetry. I mean, it's one thing to say, oh, I don't think that character's not really coming through for me, or, I mean, that seems a little flat right there. I'm not quite understanding what you mean.
Yes.
But do they do the same thing with you with like the specific imagery of what you're trying to convey?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they'll
Okay.
say, this part doesn't work for me, or
It's
this
murky.
part doesn't.
Do you mean this or do you mean this?
Exactly.
Okay, I
yeah.
see. And you say, oh, I mean, no, I mean, number three. Something else entirely. Okay, but that gives you an opportunity then to go back and kind of rethink
Yes.
how you're
exactly.
presenting the concept.
Yeah, whether I've gotten it across or not. And it really is a wonderful group, because some groups you go to, the people are very polite, and so they don't really tell you what they think, and we're not like that. We're not polite at all. So,
Okay.
if we see something that works, we say that it works, and if we see something that doesn't work, we say this doesn't work, and why.
This is interesting because I was just, when you're talking about that, I was thinking about the book that Monica Drake wrote, and Chuck, I don't even know how
Clown
you,
Girl, was it?
yeah,
Yes.
and I'm not sure how you say his last name, but you know who I'm talking about. Chuck, it starts with a P, Polinick or
yes.
something.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
I don't know how to say his name, but anyway, and he's like, I hate this woman. She's too damn good, and he's talking about their writing group that they have, and that there's, yes, they're each other's biggest cheerleaders, but also, I mean, fierce competitors as well, and so there's that piece of, if everybody's really striving to be published and be, the most edgy or the most original, or, how does that work? So it sounds like your group maybe is like a few steps off of that and more supportive, just
Yeah, I'd say we're more
friendly.
supportive. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So, but we are honest about it, and that's what makes the group useful.
Yeah, I love that. So will we be seeing you anytime soon at a poetry reading?
Whenever there's another one in town, I'll probably show up.
Okay, well, Bob, I really want to thank you for being here today. It's been fabulous to have you, and I'm so glad to meet you.
Oh, thank you. I very much
Good.
enjoyed this.
Okay, great.
Yeah.